Battle for the Block, how esports and blockchain can grow together.
As far as you know, I'm coming from the blockchain from the blockchain background. So anyway, I'm really excited about this synergy, and I'm really excited what will be the outcomes of the next panel discussion. And for this, I'm really excited as well to welcome on stage a moderator. Please give a big hand to Daniel Bernard, investor and partner at Mindspring Capital. Please be louder. Also, please welcome on the stage Chris Nikolopoulos, Chief Commercial Officer at Betby. Put your hands together and welcome him on stage. Also, please give a big hand to Bert Glass, NFT entrepreneur at NFT Club. Also, give it up to Wesley Ellul, Chief Creative Officer at Quizando. And last but not least, Jason Mann, CCO at Pollinate. Please give him a big hand. Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. The floor is yours.
Hello. Oh, there we are. Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. Let's just have a look at the room here. Put up your hands if you are actively involved in the esports industry. Investor or operator, developer. 1, 2, 3. And who wants to be involved in this fantastic sector? Put up your hands. And the rest of you are just here for the aircon? What is it? Okay. Well, welcome. We've got a fantastic panel here. We're looking at the cross-section of esports and blockchain, the battle for the block. Now, blockchain technology been around for quite a while, of course, but only now we're entering an era where we're seeing its application. But when I talk about technology, I'm always a bit fuzzy. Technology doesn't exist for technology's sake. It's always there for a purpose. And I just want us to think about the best use cases first of all. What are the biggest advantages? This is the first question I want to put to our great panel here. What are the biggest advantages for using blockchain technology over and above traditional esports platforms? And I'll open with Bert. First of all, you've got a very broad view being an NFT entrepreneur. Let us know your views on this.
Yeah, I start with the general perspective. So for me, blockchain is decentralization, removing the man in the middle. And my topic is NFT, so non-fungible tokens. So just a question in the audience. How many of you know what NFT are? Okay, so non-fungible tokens is a way to earn, to own your assets, digital assets. So it's you can own intellectual property, and this is a game changer in the internet. Yeah. So for me, it's all about owning your data, having data decentralized and not in many databases stored around the world.
Okay, thank you. Wesley, let's take it over to you a second. Bert talks for a very wide area here, but yourself in your position at the moment, where do you see the big winners?
So the big winners right now are going to be those people who use NFTs, for example, for marketing purposes in the esports area. They're going to be able to start analyzing their actual audiences much better using some data analysis tools with the wallets. They're going to be finding out who is the persona, who they were going to attract and bring into that fold. We're also going to be seeing those guys who start using NFT contracts for teams and individual players, doing some very interesting things there, because all of a sudden the players who can start earning through that are going to be verified on what they're doing. So it's not like I have a 5,000 euro contract or a 10,000 euro contract. Those people who are actually making real good money are going to be able to verify in the world, and their contracts are going to be able to start getting bigger and bigger rather than just making up numbers.
Well, let me play devil's advocate for a second, because if we're talking about player analysis, that exists with regular technology. Why do we need blockchain technology for that?
Oh, well, it can be tampered with regular technology. It's as simple as that. If someone wants to fudge the numbers right now, you can. If it pays your esports team to say, this guy got a little bit more percentage here, or if you want to actually trade him off to someone else, you can do that. Having decentralized, verifiable technology in between all those parties is going to be so strong in actually analyzing this person is doing what he's saying he's doing, even from your training point of view. I know you do analysis day in, day out, but do you bring it all together? Do you the blockchain technology the blockchain technology helps you bring it together, analyze it, but also verify that. So that, like, do you trade players in the space? You might know, actually. Do you trade players between teams in the space? Yeah. So that data, if you want to trade a player and you're trying to bring back value, that data becomes verifiable at that point. This person has done this.
That clarifies it nicely. Actually, Jason, I'd like to take it over to you in your position at Pollinate as well. And just as a knowledgeable person in this sector, how do you react to what Wesley said?
No, I completely agree. My thing at the moment is everything you're saying there is completely, verifiable in terms of the direction that we're going with the blockchain and esports. I mean, we're seeing so many issues with both players and verifying it that, you can turn it into taking it back to the fraud cases that we're seeing as well within the esports teams, the whole throwing games and trying to bet games. And that's what we're seeing with players being verified, is players are making up their numbers or they're getting bots to come into games, and that's the issue that we're seeing. A massive issue is bots within games, within esports teams, and within esports tournaments. You can even take it a step further where esports tournaments aren't paying off the teams that are winning. And this is a good thing that the blockchain is actually able to verify, and we can put it straight into the smart contract where once a tournament's done, it automatically goes through the payments to the players and the teams.
So we're talking here a lot about the benefits for the ecosystem as a whole, a lot through verification, transparency. Chris, let me turn over to you. How do you see the benefits for the actual end users? He feels that he's getting something additional through the use of blockchain technology that he can't get today.
Thank you for having me. When we are talking about esports and blockchain, first of all, we need to remember that those two industries are going to grow together because they are very, very close, tied to each other. They are digital industries. There are many advantages, with the most obvious one being the fact that it allows different stakeholders, from players, game developers, organizers, clubs, to create an ecosystem where information can be streamlined quickly, efficiently, publicly. We're talking about permanent data storage. We can talk about segmentation of users, about users in particular, as you asked. We can talk about valuable NFTs that drop in the game, like assets. So there are many different aspects that where we can see that from.
Absolutely, and honestly, we've only just started, so we don't really know where the biggest winners are going to be, but we'll find out in the next coming years. But this is an exciting time. Let's think about it in a more rounded way. We're obviously all hugely bullish on blockchain in esports. Let's also think about the risks. When there are great opportunities, there are always big risks. I myself am an investor. I have to think about this and not just fly in with absolutely everything every time there's an opportunity. So who can tell me about the risks? Let's be open what might go wrong with this in this area. Berthold, could you start with this one?
Yeah, so when it comes to new technologies, there's always a risk, right? You have the risk of maybe losing your seed phrase. So if you have a wallet where all your data is stored and you get scammed and someone else got your seed phrase, your private key, they can empty your wallet, for example. That's a great risk. So it's a learning curve for everyone who uses this technology. But I think the opportunities are bigger than the risks.
Wesley?
Yeah, fraud is going to be one of the big things, but not just fraud on a user level, like, stealing wallets. We're going to be seeing projects that are promising a lot. We're going to see a lot of new things in the space for esports companies, or I don't know, they're going to try to sell them, have them to do a token for their esports esports group, but they don't have anything to use with the token. So people are going to be buying these projects. They might get disenchanted with it. We sort of need to encourage practical use of the technology in the space rather than just financial plays. That's what happens a lot when new technology crops in. It's just like, oh, I can make X amount by issuing my token now, or I can do an NFT project which actually doesn't add value to my community. It could be an identity play, which is fine, but we have to be careful that we're not just looking at it from the money point of view, which a lot of people are doing in the space across the board. But it will happen in esports as well, and you'll have bad actors who take advantage of people and then just really annoy them from the whole esports and blockchain community.
I definitely fear that there's a obviously we talk about the hype in this, and of course, and I'm trying to be very, very careful between seeing NFTs for NFT's sake and then an NFT that actually has utility for the end user. I don't personally see any growth for those that don't have utility. That's my own personal take. Chris, do you have any comment on that?
First of all, we need to remember that there's no universal regulatory body around this area, and as you said, this creates some opportunities but also creates some risks. The opportunity here is that the absence of regulation can allow maybe the industry to grow faster, that's true, but on the same time it may keep investors away. There are a lot of projects and users need to filter them out carefully before they participate in them. It's like exactly like crypto. You know, there are so many altcoins that people are investing, and then they realize that there's no proper backup about this crypto. Then these altcoins stop growing at some moment, and actually those people, they lose their money and they never get back to the industry. They leave the crypto industry entirely. They don't use anymore even more secure tokens. So we need to be very careful. We need to filter out the information before we participate.
Absolutely, and on the case of regulation, I'd definitely like to come back to you on that in a while, but I'd like to hear from Jason now. Where do you see the biggest risks?
I think governance. I think, for me at least, governance is a big issue. I mean, there's no governance in esports at the moment. A centralized regulation, centralized governing body to see whether or not players are actually who they say they are. We're not seeing tournaments paying out players. We're not seeing teams paying players, and we're seeing teams taking advantage of their fans, of their players, and just start the overall ecosystem as it stands. And we have for years, right? And now with crypto and blockchain coming in, it's completely decentralized. There is no governing body on top of that. So my concern is, my worry is, at least, are we going to see it improve the esports industry, or are we actually going to see it make it worse and push further back?
That's absolutely true, and my worry about esports, of course, is when we think about the demographic that is there. We've got a huge amount of children, minors, and surely this opens up a big problem, potential problem, if there's no regulation here. We're talking about gaming, gamification, minors playing one against the other. There comes in the issues of gambling, of course, and then potential fixing. How can we possibly keep a hold on this without any regulation?
One of the things that we're going to have to look at is a lot of fraud detections has to go on. We have to be careful that, again, with this, especially the play-to-earn gaming that's coming in, that's with minors and things like that, while they'll be able to earn tokens, we need to really limit the things they do with them. So maybe they'll get I'm actually working in a project at this moment, not in the esports space, but we have to make sure that they get things which are valuable to the children, but do not go outside of that. How do we block them from adults joining? That's a bit of a tougher story. We might need to actually do reverse KYC and actually see the person who is playing or things like this. Another thing we need to be careful of is all these people who are farming. So trying to earn token, and they suck the fun out of the game. So this is something else that could negatively affect the whole esports industry, because if you have people playing just for getting tokens and earning money, then it might not be sports anymore. All of a sudden, it might just be playing essentially like against an AI, but it's just someone clicking a button.
This actually touches on, so we were talking about the regulation, I'm thinking from a legal perspective when it comes to minors. What you touched on here is also an ethical point. I'd love to hear your thoughts about that, because there are a lot of discussions around the ethical issues in technology in general. Is there an ethical issue here, specifically in esports, that we have to be very, very careful about? Whoever wants to answer this can take this.
Yeah, I disagree a bit with the ethical side of it in terms of with the minors, but yeah, completely agree. But in terms of the way that the industry is at the moment, it's giving accessibility to everyone from all walks of life, right? I mean, I got my big break in esports when I started off as a professional player, and then went on to the business side, and then went on to consulting for many companies. And that's where I see, there's a limitation to the ethical debate that can be had, because it is giving accessibility to everyone. And that's my biggest, my advocacy with esports in general. And it correlates perfectly with blockchain, it being the whole for the people, by the people. SiGMA, we is better than me in the industry, and that's the same thing with esports. And we're seeing that allowance working directly with teams and players and their fans, and how it all just works with the ecosystem. I mean, fans are getting rewarded more and more now through blockchain. 100 Thieves, for example, they recently gave NFTs to all their fans, and so we're seeing that there's an ethical debate in terms of with the miners, but I don't think in terms of the general aspect we're seeing it.
This ethical point that you brought up, I'm just thinking right now, we may want to sort of separate the leagues, so like having the adults and the minors playing in different areas, and maybe in a case where the minors can't even earn anything from it themselves, they can only play for fun, which will actually separate some of the bad actors in the space. Another thing that might come down to regulation at the end of the day. We might see some forms of regulation from states saying, look, if children and adults are playing games at the same time in the same space, we might need to separate them. I know I play Fortnite with my daughter. She's 8 years old, so we're playing together. But then there's other children in the chat who want to chat and continue talking. And like at that point, I'm feeling, okay, we need to switch off our mics. We need to separate that because nobody's controlling that area. But I think we do need to look at that space. Again, blockchain KYC elements can help that and at least know who is doing what, where, when, why, and how.
That's a very important point, and actually blockchain technology allows the decisions to be made. You can separate or not separate. Personally, I feel it would be a shame if all of a sudden you couldn't have the new 11-year-old kid beating the 30-year-old champion. It's a shame not to match them up, but definitely blockchain technology allows you to make the decision. Berthold.
Yeah, I think the technology is always neutral, right? And when then there's a new technology, then there are always new risks. So remember when the internet was invented, we had new risks we hadn't had before, like online banking, people get scammed with their accounts and so on. And I think the blockchain technology and NFTs is such a young technology that it's like in the child stadium now, right? And we all have this learning curve. We all have to learn how to use it. Where are the risks? Where are the opportunities? And we will see in 5 to 10 years where we are. My prediction is the opportunities will be bigger than the risks, and people will find out how to use it properly.
It's a learning curve like everything, which is why when technology is so new, when someone says they're an expert, I'm like, not yet, it'll take a while. Chris.
I agree with the guys, there's no much more to add. It's important to create a secure network, and if we cannot control anything else, at least control the way people are going to spend, especially minors, are going to spend those money that they may win. The rest, I'm covered up with the guys.
Thank you. Let's turn the conversation just slightly now to how we can make sure of longevity for esports titles in blockchain. It's always been critical, longevity. We talk about the biggest titles, Counter-Strike, Dota, all of those big ones, League of Legends. They've managed to get that longevity where the players keep with the game forever. Is there a risk here with blockchain that with reducing tokenomics or waning interest by players because of lots of other games in blockchain games coming up, that there's a risk to actually retaining that longevity for blockchain titles?
I think we're seeing now the esports as a whole will stick to the current titles and the publishers that we have, right? I think the technology in blockchain itself with play-to-earn games isn't there yet to integrate esports fully. So we'll be seeing, I mean, we're not seeing major titles such as Riot Games with League of Legends and Valorant. They're not integrating blockchain at all, as it stands, right? But CSGO, it's same thing. It's same thing with Steam. Steam isn't integrating play-to-earn games because they're creating their own platform. So we're seeing these games move into a play-to-earn. Well, we're seeing multiple games move to play-to-earn, but the major players aren't there yet. We're seeing the general publishers, but in terms of the esports sector, the esports sector will only follow once the publishers with their, the casual games are play-to-earn. But we are seeing in terms of just the overall scope, I don't think there'll be much of a change because the communities will always be there.
The issue with community is every year we've had new games coming out. The legacy games have managed to keep their place. They've managed to do their thing. Will they adapt? Will they grow? I think it's going to wait for the first one to get out there, the first one who's going to, integrate into Unity, the blockchain. They have a good game that sticks. It'll probably be a simple game to begin with, and those people will then see, wow, the community did pick this up. If Epic decides to do this in Fortnite, yeah, they're gonna bring a whole community with them very quickly, very suddenly. They actually could be working on this at the moment, very similar to what I'm doing on my platform, which is literally converting my player base to a token base. But it's going to take that person to make that first step, to be the brave one and say, okay, I'm going to do it. Again, I think right now they're working out what we were talking about before, the ethical issues. How do we separate this? What do we do? What happens when our token goes out into the wide world? If we're working with skins, where's the IP reside? Because Marvel paid me X amount of million to have this skin, but then it's going to go into someone's wallet, and will it make its way into another world at some point? So these are questions that are probably being asked more from a technical, legal standpoint to try to figure it out before they take these steps forward.
But we've been saying these sorts of things for a couple of years. When is it going to take that big step that everything will explode? Anyone's guess, really. Anyone want to wager a gamble here?
I would say next 3 to 5 years we'll see I'll say within 3 years we'll see our first major title. Probably it will be a new title. It probably will be something that we haven't heard of, because I don't think people want to mess with their IP. But we'll probably see our first major project within 3 years. It'll be there. We're going to see a lot of metaverse projects out probably by the end of this year. So it'll start getting there with a lot of mini quests, a lot of mini games. But the first full-fledged sort of gaming I'm actually thinking of one at the moment. There's Decimated.net, which is a blockchain-based game. It was actually based out of Malta. Now I think they're based out of Lisbon, which they're actually trying to look into this area of actually being an esport game. They're launching shortly, so that actually could be one of the new titles that gets out there.
Well, definitely keep a lookout for that, Wesley. Thank you very much. Jason, what did you want to add?
No, I was going to completely agree. I do think the timeline will be a little bit accelerated. I think 2022 is the year of the metaverse and esports and play-to-earn in general. We're seeing games like Nitro League, for example, that are integrating an entire esports ecosystem within the game itself. So that's, for me at least, I think 2022 we might see smaller titles, and then major titles we'll see come out in the next 3 to 5 years.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to be a little bit selfish here. I'm learning a lot from you guys today, for sure. I'm an investor in sports and sports technology. I'd love to add to my portfolio something esports, blockchain, and pretend that I know what I'm talking about. So what would you advise an investor, such as me, to be investing in? What is the major area that you think is going to be the biggest winner here? Berthold, as the guru of NFTs, what do you think?
So it's no surprise that I would advise you to invest in NFTs, or to at least to learn this technology, how the business works, because my prediction is in 5 to 10 years, every football ticket, today we get a paper when we buy a ticket for a football game, right? And in 5 to 10 years, every football ticket, every concert ticket will be an NFT. We have it on our smartphone. It's like we do Zoom calls today on a daily basis. It will be totally normal to use NFTs. Now it's for nerds, it's for geeks, and in 5 to 10 years it will be for everyone, and everyone will use it without maybe knowing it.
That makes total sense to me. As someone who is not quite there yet, but that's the utility that we were talking about before. Wesley, what's the big win here?
The big win right here is community. Anything that's going to build community very quickly, things that will look at micro communities and then build super communities out of those micro communities in this space. Gamification is key, and I think in the whole esports and sports tech space, right now you need to look at blockchain projects that are just going to be about building community, getting people together, and understanding these technologies. So with NFTs, with various different things, but anything community-focused, community-led.
That's the key word, community, and I totally agree with that. I see that across the board. Jason, give me your best tip.
Esports teams.
Ooh, interesting.
They own everything, right? I mean, the biggest money is made from teams, not tournaments. The biggest integration with fans is esports teams, not tournaments. And the players, their entire fan bases are esports teams, not tournaments. So I think anything from technology is all going to be filtered straight back into esports teams, and they're going to be at the core of everything blockchain esports.
That's fascinating. I mean, if we think about traditional sports, where owning a team is normally a bit of a loss maker rather than a money maker, why would esports be different then in your point of view?
Because esports teams essentially, they manipulate the entire industry as a whole, right? They have the final say in everything. If a tournament's not good, they're not going back. And with the technology, if the technology is not up to the standard, they have the entire community and fan base that have the entire understanding of both industries, and at the end of the day, they're the ones that have the final say, right? It's the fans. If the fans don't like it, they're not going to use it, and if teams don't like it, they're not going to put pitches to their fans.
I think that's a key difference, and it's really important to understand the differences between esports and traditional sports. There are definite big ones there. Chris, let's wrap up with you. Go on, you're a B2B software provider for the sports betting space. Where do you think that that's, I mean, obviously you're biased here. Do you think that that's the big winner here? Is that where I should get involved? Do you want to send me a deck?
Yeah, you need to remember that esports is just like sports and it's about competition. Gamers spend a lot of time to improve their skills, so it's about skills. So when we talk about NFTs in esports, I believe in them more like a reward system and not like a system that gives advantage to gamers. So we need to pick our cases carefully. I think with the way the blockchain industry is developing, it's a cosmic speed, you know, and in the coming years, as the guy said, we are going to see many more use cases in this field. And I believe that the industries of entertainment, sports, even health industries, I would say, are going to be in the forefront.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Well, gentlemen, Jason, Wesley, Berthold, Chris, it's been a wonderful panel. Thank you very much. Give a round of applause for all of our wonderful panelists. Thank you very, very much. Have a great day.